Now what are we going to talk about? The purl and piping foot today. There's a lot more you can do with a purl and piping foot than do purls and piping. So what you can do, let me explain what it is, okay? There are two sizes for the purl and piping foot for the Brother and the Baby Locks, and probably other brands as well. So there's, see, it has a channel. See, it's hard to see underneath. See that channel right here? You can see it. That holds where you can put your pearls or piping or all kinds of things. There's a lot of different things you can do with this. Then there's a smaller one, which is, see, it's smaller. The channel is a lot smaller. And those are for smaller pipings. So they're different things. I'm going to do some things with this I'll bet you never even thought of. You know, you think, okay, we can zigzag on some pearls. Ooh, whoopee. That's not all it does. I'd be surprised what this little plastic foot can do. So I'm going to start with the little one. We're going to put the little one on. To use the purl and piping foot, let's do piping first. Here's some regular commercial piping, and this is a small one, so I'll be using the small piping foot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this up for a straight machine, or a straight stitch. Okay, so that cording's going to ride in that channel, and I can just put this on the edge. Okay, I'm going to move that needle over till it's just to the left of that piping, and see, I could just sew it in. And go a little further over. So that allows you to sew it in. I'm just going to cut. I would, like right now I have my stitch length at 6 millimeters wide. Remember, on this machine, straight stitch does not have a width, so when you change the stitch width, it moves the needle position. So now I'm going to put this just right sides together, and I can feel where that channel is. And yep, that's right underneath there. And I'm going to move that stitch width down to 5.5 so it moves it in a little bit. And I'm going to follow the same channel. And I'm not seeing it, but I'm just letting it ride in the channel. And see, now it sews it in perfectly. And you don't see any of the stitching. You can also use this to make your own piping. If you've got some thin cording, then you can make your own piping. So let's see, that would look absolutely beautiful. And see, not seeing any of those stitches show. Okay, that's just traditional, boring piping. If you want to do thick piping, I'm going to switch to the bigger foot. And this time I'm going to make my own piping. And I'm using oversized piping. When I'm looking at this, this piping is bigger than that. Well, just barely. It just barely fits inside the channel. But I can still use it even if it's a little bigger, because it'll ride on top. There we go. So I'm going to get a piece of this and make my own cording. So here I can make my own piping. I will just fold this in the middle. Got a kink in it. Here we go. Start at the right end. Okay. And I'm going to put this. Now if you need to hyperextend, hyperlift your foot, because this doesn't quite go underneath of it, is you push really hard, it'll go a good ½ inch above. Okay. And I'm going to move that stitching all the way to the left, 7.0. And just to be sure, I want to make sure that that needle is not hitting my foot. I'm going to make that stitch length a little longer because it is kind of thick. And then, see, it rides over effortlessly. Make your stitch length a little bit longer because it does need a little help to push, because that's awfully thick going through there. And see, it made really nice piping without twisting. So it didn't twist the fabric, so it did it really nicely, nice and thick. Okay, one other thing. Here's the first surprise thing you can do with the purl and piping foot. And this, I would use the wide one. Okay, so we're going to use this truly ugly fabric. Now just say you wanted to make an exposed zipper, which means this is a zipper that's going to sit on the top of a piece of a garment. Yeah, let's baste them together. Just use a long stitch in the center, 5 long, and I'm going to just simply sew a seam, pretending like it's basting. Well, let's do this a little neater here. Okay. I'm not going to put the whole zipper in. I'm just going to finger press this open. Finger press it open. Okay. Now granted, I would probably glue this zipper in. And you just lay your zipper on the top. And you can glue it in. I'm not going to glue it in now because this is just a demo, but I would take the time. Normally, you know, my favorite stuff in the whole world is Elmer's school glue. I'm going to put my stitch length on regular, like 2.5, and I'm going to move that needle so that it's all the way, well, close to the end. Let me see if it's good. Yep, about right there. Okay. And I'm just going to eyeball this. I would usually take the time to either use that Wonder Tape to glue it in, or just a Elmer's school glue. So I'm going to sew this end. And I would have sewn my seam shut, say about right there. And do the same thing. Now I would use the same color thread here. And I'm going to move the needle all the way to the left. And hopefully I centered this right. Okay, and usually I will have cut the teeth, and then you fold this under like this at the very end. You'd fold that under, and then you would also sew this way as well. But this is those exposed zippers that not particularly crazy about them. And watch, I can actually take this side of the foot now. Move my needle back to the center, or to maybe 2.5. Why is this not moving? There we go. Now I'm letting this edge run along the edge of the tooth. This double stitches it. And if I'm going on the same way, then move it to this side and move that needle over. To maybe, this one is 6. Oh, wait a minute, I don't want it that far over. Wrong way. I want to move it about the same length as I had it before. That 3.5 is sort of where it was, so it's in the center. So now it is finished on the back. So I'm taking my sharp scissors and break the basting. Or a seam ripper, whatever you have. There. Okay. And see, now you've got a nice finished zipper. And if I had gotten that in the center, it would have been perfect, but I didn't. But this is a good way to also apply zippers for a purse. You know, top flap to a purse. That could easily be the top flap to a purse, a zipper opening. In fact, you could just leave this, you know, finish these ends, sew it all the way to the end, and now you can open that purse as wide as you can get it. So I'll bet you never thought to use the purl and piping foot in order to put in a zipper. It's a lot easier than using the zipper foot that comes with the machine. I don't like that foot one bit. Why does this work so successfully? Is because the feed dogs are coming in contact with the whole foot. When you're using a zipper foot, let me get a zipper foot here. This is like the worst foot ever invented. Don't like this, the one that comes with the machine. Here's why I don't like it. You either put it on one side or the other, and you're only using not even half your feed dogs. So this is why with a zipper foot it tends to want to turn on you. It wants to arc and curve. So this is why this is not so successful, because you're only hitting the feed dog. Actually, you're not even hitting the feed dogs with the whole thing. Here's a feed dog here, back here, and here. Whenever you are turning this hand wheel, this foot is only touching this little tiny bit of a feed dog, maybe the edge of this one and this one. So it's not even hitting with all of the teeth you have available. That's why it doesn't stitch very well at all. Plus, the other problem with this is that this foot hits this zipper pull and gets stuck every time. See, ow, don't stick your finger. See, that gets stuck there every time, and it gets caught right there. Don't like this zipper foot one bit. You want one like this. That is flat on the bottom. Okay, so that's another thing you can do with your purl and piping foot. Did you know you can ruffle with it? Or ruffle your fabric? As long as it's a soft-handed fabric, you can ruffle it. Like, I'm going to use some of this netting. Like a lot of us like to make those scrubby things for the tub. So I've got some of this orange netting. Put it back on center needle position. I'll make my stitch length as long as it's going to go. And I'm not going to really care about tightening the threads or anything like that. So any of the tensions, I'm just going to leave this long. Oh, one downfall to this foot is that it doesn't have a slot to put your thread through it. So if you want to get your thread under the foot to start, you have to take a stitch, pull it up, and then pull your threads underneath. I'm going to grab my tails, okay, and I'm just going to put my tooling underneath. Just going to grab the ends of my tooling so it won't pull back in, and just sew. Surprise, it ruffles, and it ruffles really easy. So I don't know what that, this phone's acting weird. Okay, but see, there's your ruffle. Does it really nice and tight, and you can adjust the ruffle by just pulling your threads. It's my second favorite way. Oh, not that one knotted. Okay, it doesn't want to pull in. I must have knotted the threads. But see, you get a really nice ruffle, and you could just gather this up. It's good for making those roses or a bunch of make yards of this and put it together for a pom-pom. Really nice. Okay. Here's another thing you can do. Okay, I'm going to put my needle all the way to the left. So I'm going to leave that stitch length at 5.0, and I'm going to put that needle all the way to the left because I'm going to make a pom-pom. So I'm going to slowly sew. There we go. And this I could make a yo-yo. Who thought you could use your machine to make a yo-yo? Why does this gather? You want an, oh, the stitch length I have is 5.0. And the longest stitch length your machine will make. Why does it gather? It's that great big old gap. Because it sort of doesn't hit the feed dogs there. There's no pressure being put on it, so therefore it tends to make that gather. And then you pull it out. And you grab one of the threads. Usually I'll tie one end, but I'll tie one end. And then you can gather these up. I'm not sure where I should have used two different colors of thread. That would have made sense. Okay, here we go. I found both ends. That end. And that end. And then you just... I lost that end. Can't see it. There we go. I should have used different colors for top and bottom because I'm pulling one top and one bottom. That's not working. Then you just sort of straighten out your gathers, and now you've got your yo-yo sewn. I would tie it and knot it. I didn't sew very nicely, and I need to pull it tighter too. And then tie them together. I keep pulling the wrong one. There we go. Keep pulling them, and then you can tie them together. There we go. Just tie it in a knot, and you have a yo-yo. Can't tie in a knot today. And then once you press it, now you've got your yo-yos. And y'all know how much I just love yo-yos. Not at all. It's my mother's fault. Do you remember those stupid clowns that they had back in the 70s, 60s, and 70s where you used to make hundreds of these, stack them up to make a daggone doll? My mother made me help her do these. We must have made thousands and thousands of these stupid yo-yos, and till this day I hate yo-yos. Okay, back to what else you can do with the purl and piping foot. Okay, we'll talk about more traditional uses now. To use the wider one, there's different things you can use with it. Here's a really pretty piece of trim. And for this, I would use a zigzag. Take your zigzag stitch, and depending on how much of this you want to couch down, because whatever you do with it, you're just going to be couching it with the zigzag foot. So I'm just picking the regular zigzag zigzag stitch. And normally the width is 3.5, and that's kind of small, so I'm going to make it at least 4.5. But I'm going to try it. And I want my stitch length about 2, because, and this is where I would put monofilament thread on here, and you can use that monofilament, the invisible thread. I would use the polyester versus the nylon, use a good quality product, like either Sulky's pretty good, Madeira has a good one, so does Wildeye, and Superior. They all have really good polyester monofilament. The nylon will melt with an iron, so be careful with that. So you just simply couch over top, however big you want it to be. Now, whenever you're doing pearls and you're applying it to a piece of fabric, I recommend you do one of two things. Well, this is a piece of duck cloth, so because you have trouble with it tunneling as you do a zigzag, the fabric wants to scrunch in this way. So to counteract it, either use a heavier piece of fabric, use a stabilizer. You can use a cutaway stabilizer if you like, or just treat your fabric with either 6 layers of heavy spray starch or 1 good layer of Terreal Magic. And we have the Terreal Magic at the store. That stuff is great. It's like 10 coats of heavy spray starch, and it washes out, so it's great stuff, and you don't have to have stabilizer. Sometimes if the beads are bigger than the channel, then you're going to have to help them through, but this one I don't have to. See that? So this is commercial, and it came like that with the pearls in the middle. You could create your own with the pearl and piping foot just by simply applying that over top of lace. Here's another. Now this is another one that would work. These are real pearls. It's from a necklace. They're knotted pearls, and it's from a necklace I used to have that I broke. And one of these days I'll restring it. Okay. And these are a little bit bigger, so I'm going to have to help these through. And I want that maybe a good wide. I don't want it to hit the pearls because that'll definitely break a needle. Okay. And put my stitch length a little bigger. And I'm going to hold these pearls into place and help them through a little bit to keep them straight. Because what can happen is that the pearls are wanting to gather your fabric, because there's a little more resistance for the pearls going underneath. Being careful there. Can you do this on a serger? Yes and no. On a serger, you can put them in the middle of a piece of fabric by using a flat lock. In order to get them in the middle of a piece of fabric, you have to use a flat lock and then sew it in. You can use the beading foot with an overlock on the edges. So, but yes, this works. This, in fact, we'll compare it to see how they look, which looks better, the serger or the sewing machine. Personally, I think the sewing machine looks better. Mostly because it's easier to control your speed, you can see better, and I think you get a better product. Okay, now you can sew on other things, like here is rhinestones, and I'm going to use cheap scissors to cut these rhinestones. Okay. Now, which one do I use? The narrow? Because you look at this, oh, I could use the narrow, no problem. Yeah, problem. It's really, I guess you could, but it's going to sit on it. Well, let's try it. Let's see which way it goes on better. Okay, so I'll sew half of it. Now this I could use a smaller or a narrower zigzag. Okay, so I'll make that maybe 4.0. Always try that to see. Also anchors. Okay, that's the wide. It went on easily. It went on easily with the wide. Let's see what it does. I'm just going to stitch over the same spot with the narrow. I always get the thread caught under the foot, and then it's a mess. let's just get another piece. Or I've got this piece of black, which is, there's this one. No, that's wider. Is this the same as that? Yeah, this is the same. It's just it's black. Okay, it's okay. It's doing it with a little more strain, but it is doing it. Yep, I could use the narrow for that. And of course this one will do the narrow very easily. Ah, I wanted to do, okay, yeah, this will do this really easily. This is the narrow. I could do even smaller zigzag than that. Let's go 3.0. Yep. See, that didn't, those are little tiny just pearls from Walmart. These work not, this works nice on the edges of a veil. But see how that's wanting even this, just a tiny bit of puckering, even though this is duck cloth? Now this is a cool experiment that I've done, that you can also put more, and then, well, here, we'll put this on. And then you could use braid. You could even turn a corner with it. Neat, huh? See, now that did that on a corner, so that did a good job there. But I think this is fun to do too, is that you can take soutache braid is another one that works. This is a little bit of soutache braid that also stitches on real well. In fact, this one I could just take a center stitch. Ah, no, that didn't work. Unless you glue. I'll do like Judy Kissinger said. There we go. I just kept it from flipping. Once I kept it from flipping, it worked great. See, that went right down the middle of the soutache braid. That worked really nice. Okay, now if you're using the wide one, I wouldn't do this with the narrow, but with the wider one. You could even do 2 rows, let's say 2 rows of pearls. Let's see, I'll do 2 rows of little pearls and 1 row of this pretty braid. Okay. I'm going to put these 3 together all at one time. I just want to get them started under there. There. And I'll pull them through too far. Okay, and I want a wide, maybe 4.5. Okay. I set my zigzag width at 5.5 and a 2 stitch length. And so now I'm sewing, just keep them in order. And I can even slightly curve. And see, it's slightly raised, but if I want, I could leave it. See how it's raised? So if I can show you that raise. See how it's raised up a little bit? But you can also flatten it down if you like, to give you really interesting stuff. You can do your own beads. There's a lot you can use to embellish whatever you're making. These are great on purses, necklines. In fact, this is so pretty. I think what I'm going to do on my next, this turned out so nice, and it is so simple that I think that after, wouldn't that look pretty at the edge of a t-shirt neckline? That would look really nice there, I think. So I'm going to try that on the next shirt that I make, or even take something that's already finished. Take a ready to wear. So anyone have any questions? But yeah, this would look really, I think this would look really nice at the edge of a neckline, or even down the facing of a jacket. I like that. And that's just nothing but that shiny braid, and it really looks, I mean, it sparkles. I like that. And you know how I like my sparklies, because I really hate these pearls. The only reason I buy them is when I teach serger classes. And that's, but now I've got a use for them, so I got to go get some more. I'll see you guys later. Have a great week, and I miss you guys. Bye.